Hello, everybody, and welcome to Nathan on Shuffle and to my latest episode of New Album Spotlight, the show where I put the spotlight on a new album in progressive rock that I think you guys will enjoy if you like the same kind of music as me. Always trying to highlight that great new music is coming out all the time. It's not just the classic prog era that has all the great music. There's some great stuff that artists are coming up with nowadays, keeping the genre alive and kicking in the modern day. So I'm really pleased to be able to talk about some great new artists. And this is an album that took me a bit by surprise. It was a group that I was unaware of, or an artist, I should say, or a duo more so. This is Circe Link and Christian Nesmith, and the album is called Arcana. This is a fantastic release, full of vintage prog goodness. I was really blown away by hearing it and noticing all the references, all of the classic prog nods. Apparently, this is Christian Nesmith, who's actually the son of Michael Nesmith from the Monkees, the classic 60s, 70s pop band, essentially, who followed the Beatles and did their own TV show and all this kind of stuff. Have some really great tunes from back in those days. But it's interesting to see that Christian Nesmith is really into progressive rock and is bringing this really classic style to this record. And I believe Circe Link is actually his wife, who is kind of an artist in her own right and is kind of the singer-songwriter, indie pop sort of artist. And they're coming together to create this really cool progressive rock album that nods to all of the heroes of the genre. It's almost like a tribute to classic prog of the 70s, in fact. There's just so many nods and sounds that really remind you of those eras, and you can pick out parts that are like, that definitely sounds like Yes, that definitely sounds like Gentle Giant, that definitely sounds like a bit of Genesis there, Jethro Tull. All of those masters are referenced in different points throughout the album, which is really fun to listen to. And this is on the heels of their album Cosmologica, which came out in 2021, which was really their first foray into full-blown progressive rock as a duo. And this is an incredible follow-up that showcases really cool young talent in the genre. I'm really excited to continue to follow them and to dive backwards into that Cosmologica record, which I hadn't heard before. So, the theme of this record is about the tarot cards, I suppose. The major arcana are the trump cards from a tarot deck, and each song on the album is a retelling of each of these different cards in the deck. So they're lengthy tracks. There's 5 tracks: the Tower, the Magician, the Fool, the Hanged Man, and the Chariot. And each one really expands and gives you a lot in this progressive rock style. The shortest track of this group is 8.5 minutes, which is the Fool. And the longest track is the final track, the Chariot, which is almost 16 minutes. So you can see the range of lengths of these tracks. So if you're like me, that gets you excited, because I love lengthy tracks that really explore a lot of ground and showcase a lot of cool proggy instrumental sections. And it's a lot of fun to listen through these different collections of music. And like I said, it's a pastiche of classic prog to my ears, with some wonderful female vocals on top of it. The Yes references are fully evoked through the Tower, with some organ and electric and acoustic guitar moments that really remind me of the classic era of the band. The Magician has some classic Chris Squire style bass throughout the track. There's really some big epic Yes moments in the final closing epic, the Chariot, which showcases some of that like positive uplifting spirit and some really great harmonies and big keyboard moments. It's really a big grand epic that you'd expect from a band like Yes. I feel like there's a bit of renaissance, and maybe that's because of the female vocals, and I think Circe can sometimes lend towards this Annie Haslam-esque style to her voice. And there's a bit of a folky feel through a lot of these pieces. The Tower has a bit of that, of course, right off the bat that you can hear. And I love the nods to Gentle Giant. As a big Gentle Giant fan, which is well documented on the channel, you hear a lot of those kind of counterpoint round vocals that you hear from Gentle Giant throughout the track list. You hear it in the Tower, the opening of the Magician, the middle of the Fool. There's several different sections where they really lean on this sort of style, but different elements also of Gentle Giant, not just the vocals, but some of the kind of funky interplay and some of the kind of medieval Renaissance type styles that they can get into. I really like their Genesis flavor that they pull into a lot of these tracks also, where they have these beautiful 12-string style guitars like the opening of The Fool. or the beginnings of the Hanged Man, which almost in the chorus kind of evoke a bit of Cinema Show. It's a really beautiful sound, and The Fool in particular is one of my favorite tracks because of this. I love those beautiful acoustic guitars and that delicate vocal that Circe gives in that track. Some cool mellotrons come into the forefront to give some added texture. You get even some flute work in the track as well, and that folky flavor and flute work also brings to mind a bit of Jethro Tull to my ears. So that's really a highlight of the record, right in the middle. It's the shortest track, so maybe one of the more palatable listens if you want to just get an idea for what you might expect for this album. Just a fantastic piece of work that I think brings all these elements together in one of the most cohesive pieces on the record. And you get a bit of almost Emerson, Lake and Palmer pomp and circumstance, big bombastic proggy keyboard moments like you hear in The Hanged Man that Keith Emerson would do in his heyday. So you get all of these references to classic prog, and it's just a wonderful walk through this classic era for a fan of that. It's just kind of ear candy, and it's fun to point at the different references. But they have a style all their own as well. Don't get me wrong that it's just some kind of copycat band of all of these artists. They definitely lean heavy on their influences, but they also strike out in their own way. And there's moments that are heavier and more modern sounding, bringing almost a metallic taste. Not totally, but definitely a harder edge to some of these tracks. You hear that at the end of The Tower, for example, with some heavier playing and some cool, crazy guitar riffs. Really fun, high-octane musical workouts throughout the pieces, a lot of great playing styles. It's just a fun record, and it brings a big smile to my face as a classic prog enthusiast. I think you guys will enjoy it as well if you're into this style just like I am. So that's really the album in my eyes. I think it's well worth your attention because there's just so much on display. If you like lengthy epic tracks, if you like all of the classic prog bands that I've mentioned, yes, Genesis, Jethro Tull, ELP, Gentle Giant, Renaissance, you're definitely going to find something to grab hold of with your ears. If you like great, beautiful female vocals, Circe Link is just a fantastic vocalist in her own right and gives a lot of emotion and weight to a lot of these pieces with her vocal work. And Christian Nesmith does an incredible job with all of the instrumentation. It seems like he does most of the instruments all himself, with the drum work is done by a different person, Christopher Alice, and you get some keyboard solos on The Chariot by Matt Brown. So you get a couple of different things, but beyond that, Christian Nesmith is really bringing a lot in the instrumental department and creating these really cool proggy soundscapes throughout the piece. Just a great recommendation for those who like classic prog. And I don't think you could go wrong if you like the kind of music I do with this album. Check it out, listen to it. Form your own thoughts. Let me know in the comments if you have any feelings or thoughts about this album. I'd love to hear it. So thank you guys for joining me in this episode. Hopefully you guys are enjoying some of the new prog out there. Let me know in the comments if there's new albums you want me to check out. And I'll be joining you in the near future with more album reviews and recommendations. Thank you guys. Enjoy the music, everybody. Bye.